I want you to picture a scenario. It's, I don't know, a Tuesday night. You're at dinner, maybe with a friend, maybe a colleague, or, and this is a scary one, an extended family member you only see once a year.
Boy.
The wine is flowing, the appetizers are gone, and you've stumbled into the topic. You know the one.
Danger zone, yeah.
Exactly. But you're feeling confident tonight. You've actually, you've read the articles, you've looked at the data. You aren't just shouting from a soapbox. You are constructing a cathedral of logic.
Mm-hmm.
You make point A, which leads just perfectly to point B, and you sit back, waiting for the concession. You're waiting for them to say, wow, I never thought of it that way.
And instead,
what do you get?
they just look at you, maybe take a sip of their drink, roll their eyes, and drop the absolute nuclear bomb of conversation stoppers. Well, you're just biased.
Boom. Game over.
It is infuriating. It feels like you've been training for a boxing match for 6 months, you step into the ring, and the other guy just pulls out a taser and zaps you.
No, it's a cheat code. It doesn't matter how much work you did. Once that label gets slapped on you, everything you just said is suddenly, invisible.
It is the ultimate get-out-of-jail-free card for the human brain.
Yeah.
But here is the thing we need to grapple with today, and this is going to be a bit of a rough ride. That accusation.
Yeah.
That retreat into calling someone biased. It's not just an annoying habit. It is a symptom of a profound mechanism in our psychology. And we aren't just going to complain about it today. We are going to take it apart.
We are dissecting the cheat code.
We are. And we're doing it with a very unusual stack of source material today.
Yeah, let's talk about this. I mean, usually we are looking at a book or maybe a research paper. Today, we are looking at a transcript. It's a metacognitive dialogue between a human learner and an AI.
Right. An AI acting as a sort of reasoning referee.
But the date on this transcript is what stopped me in my tracks.
February 2026.
2 years into our future. Now, I don't want to get too sci-fi here, but reading this, it felt different. It didn't feel like a conversation happening today. It felt, I don't know, more frantic.
That's a good word for it. The source material paints a picture of 2026 that is just intense. If you think the internet is noisy now, imagine it with 2 more years of AI-generated content flooding the zone.
Oh, man.
The context of this dialogue is a world where truth has fragmented. We aren't just disagreeing on opinions anymore. We are living in entirely different reality silos.
So in this 2026 context, this human and this AI are trying to figure out a way to think clearly when everything else is just chaos.
Yeah, they're acting as reasoning referees. Their mission is to figure out why arguments fail, why we retreat into beliefs that can't be proven wrong, and the dangerous allure of feeling intellectually, well, flawless.
And that word flawless is the trap.
It's the whole trap. We think the goal of an argument is to be invincible. But today we're going to see why trying to be invincible actually makes you stupid.
Okay, strong start. Invincibility makes you stupid. I'm writing that down. But let's go back to the beginning of the problem. That bias accusation. Why is this our default setting? Why do we jump to your bias before we even try to hear the argument?
Well, let me ask you this. If you have to choose between lifting a really heavy box or lifting a feather, which one do you pick?
The feather.
Obviously.
And why?
Because I'm lazy.
Yeah.
Or I guess because why waste the effort?
Precisely. It's biological. Your brain consumes a massive amount of your body's energy, something like 20% of your calories, despite being, a tiny part of your overall weight.
Right.
Thinking, real, critical, analytical thinking, is metabolically expensive. It burns glucose. It actually physically hurts a little.
So when I'm actually listening to someone's argument and I'm checking their sources in my head, comparing it to my own logic, that's the heavy box.
That is the heavy box. The source material calls this cognitive economy. We are all, at our core, cognitive budgeters. We have a limited amount of mental energy for the day.
A budget. I like that. And if I can look at your complex, very nuanced argument and just slap a label on it, biased, I don't have to lift the box.
I can just kick it aside.
You can kick it aside. It's a massive discount. It allows me to dismiss you entirely without having to reprocess my own entire worldview.
But wait a second, though. That sounds, well, it sounds inevitable. If we are biologically wired to save energy, are we just doomed to be lazy thinkers? Is this just human nature and we're stuck with it?
It is human nature, but that doesn't mean we have to succumb to it. I mean, we have other instincts, too, like curiosity. But there's a second layer here that makes it even stickier. It's not just about energy conservation. It's about safety.
Okay.
The source calls this identity protection.
This is where it gets tribal, right?
Deeply tribal. Think about the beliefs you hold most strongly. Maybe it's about politics, maybe it's about a diet, maybe it's about which sports team is the good one.
Right.
Those aren't just files in your brain's cabinet. They are the structural beams of who you are. They are tied to your community, your family, your sense of morality.
If you tell me I'm wrong about, say, tax policy, I might be annoyed. But if you tell me my favorite team is actually cheating, I feel that in my chest. That's a different kind of attack.
Exactly. When information comes along that threatens your identity, your brain doesn't act like a scientist looking for truth. It acts like a lawyer defending a client.
Or a soldier.
Or, better yet, a soldier defending a castle. And the bias accusation is the shield. If I can convince myself that you are compromised, that you are a bad source, then your facts can't hurt me. I don't even have to let them pass the gate.
So calling someone biased is basically just pulling up the drawbridge.
It is pure self-defense. And the tragedy is, we learn to do this. We actually get taught this. The source mentions something called heuristic reasoning.
A heuristic is like a mental shortcut, right?
It is, and we teach kids in school. Watch out for bias. Check the author. Consider the source.
Which is good advice. I mean, we should check the author.
It is good advice, but it becomes a reflex. It stops being a tool for careful analysis, and it starts being a weapon for dismissal. We learn the concept, but we apply it blindly.
It's like giving a carpenter a hammer and suddenly he thinks everything, windows, screws, fragile vases, everything needs to be smashed.
That's a perfect analogy, and of course the internet doesn't help. The source talks about emotional pacing.
Oh, the internet is the ultimate accelerant for this.
Absolutely. In a live debate, or more likely a comment section on social media, speed is the only metric that matters. If you pause to think, you lose.
Right. If I see a tweet that makes me angry and I take 3 days to research the topic and write this, thoughtful, nuanced response.
No one will ever see it. The conversation has moved on 100 times.
Yeah.
But if you reply in 3 seconds with, "You're a shill," or "This is biased garbage," you get the dopamine hit.
You get the likes, the retweets.
You get the engagement. The entire system is designed to reward the reflex, not the reflection.
Okay, so the deck is stacked against us, our biology, our identity, our technology. But I want to play devil's advocate here.
Please do.
Because sometimes people are biased. I mean, it's a real thing.
Absolutely. 100%.
If I'm reading a study on the health benefits of sugar and I see at the bottom that it was funded by a major soda company, I'm not just being lazy if I call that out. That's a real valid issue.
Yes.
So how do we tell the difference? What separates a lazy dismissal from a valid critique?
That is the million-dollar question. And the source material draws a very hard, very bright line here.
No.
A valid critique requires specificity.
Specificity.
Yes. If you say, "This is biased," and you stop there, that's the lazy reflex. That's the taser. A valid critique sounds like, "This argument might be biased because it omits this specific data set," or "it relies entirely on this unproven assumption," or "it uses loaded language right here to frame the issue."
So you have to show your work. You can't just make the accusation.
You have to engage with the content, not just the source. You can't just point at the author and say, "bad person." You have to point at the argument itself and say, "here is where it breaks." The key markers are things like selective evidence, loaded framing, or applying uneven standards to different sides.
That makes perfect sense. But the deep dive takes a pretty sharp turn here. It says that the bias card is just the entry point. It's the first line of defense.
It is.
When we really get backed into a corner, when we really need to defend our core beliefs, we retreat into something much darker, something called unfalsifiability.
Yes. This is the fortress, the intellectual black hole.
We hear this word in science classes, but I want to really unpack it for everyone. Right. What does it actually mean for a belief to be unfalsifiable?
In the simplest terms, an unfalsifiable statement is a claim that cannot be proven wrong no matter what evidence you present. It is designed, either consciously or not, in such a way that it is totally immune to reality.
Okay, give me the classic example. The source mentions the invisible being. Let's walk through that.
Okay, let's role play this. I want you to try and disprove my claim.
All right, I'm ready. Bring it on.
Here's my claim. There is an invisible, intangible dragon floating in this room right now. It is hovering right above your microphone.
Okay. Well, I don't see it.
Well, of course you don't. I told you, it's invisible. That's its primary quality.
All right, fine. I'm going to grab a thermal camera. If it's a living thing, a dragon, it has to have a heat signature. I'm scanning the room.
Shaking head. Nice try. But this is a special kind of dragon. It's cold-blooded. It matches the ambient temperature of the room perfectly at all times. You won't see a thing on the thermal cam.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to throw a big bag of flour into the air. If there is a dragon there, the flour will coat its body and I'll see the outline.
Very clever. But you see, this dragon is also permeable to flour. The flour just goes right through it, no outline.
Come on. Okay, I'm setting up super sensitive microphones. If it moves at all, it has to make some kind of sound, displace the air.
It is a silent dragon. It moves without displacing a single molecule of air.
Okay, stop. You realize how maddening this is.
Right. It's incredibly maddening. It's designed to be.
Because every single time I come up with a test, you just invent a new magical rule to explain why my test failed.
Exactly. And here's the crucial question. Does the fact that you can't prove me wrong mean that I am right?
No, of course not. It just means your claim is completely useless. It's not connected to anything real. It's just magic.
Precisely. That is the essence of unfalsifiability. It feels like a victory to the person holding the belief. You couldn't disprove me. But logically, it's a dead end. If a claim can't be tested, even in principle, it doesn't tell you anything about reality.
Okay, invisible dragons are one thing. But the source gives an example that hits a lot closer to home for a lot of people. The phrase, everything happens for a reason.
This is a tough one, because people often use this for comfort, and I want to be respectful of that emotional need. But if we look at it strictly as a logic structure, it's a perfect example of an unfalsifiable belief.
Walk me through why.
Okay, so something bad happens. Let's say you lose your job. 6 months later, you get a much better job. You say, see, I lost that job for a reason so I could be open to finding this one. The theory is concerned.
Right. Makes sense.
But now let's say you lose your job, and then 6 months later, you lose your house. And then a year after that, things just get worse and worse. It's an undeniable tragedy.
Then what do you say?
Then you say, well, the reason is just something I can't understand yet. It's a test of my character. Or maybe the reward is in the afterlife. You see, if the outcome is good, the theory is proven. If the outcome is bad, the theory is also proven, just on a different timeline or a different plane of existence.
Yeah.
No amount of suffering, no amount of tragedy can ever disprove the statement. It absorbs everything.
It eats reality.
It does. And the most dangerous version of this, the one that really tears apart societies, is what the source calls the rhetorical trap.
This is the political one.
It is. The claim is this. Anyone who disagrees with my political ideology is only disagreeing because they are part of the conspiracy, or because they are hopelessly biased, or because they're a paid shill.
Wow. That is a completely closed loop.
It's a perfect, unbreakable circle. If you agree with me, I'm right. If you disagree with me, your disagreement becomes the proof that I'm right about you being the enemy.
This is the rigged system narrative the source talks about in detail.
Yes. And we see this everywhere, in finance and elections and corporate scandals. The core belief is the system is rigged.
So if you find evidence of fraud or corruption, the believer says, see, I told you, it's rigged.
Exactly. Proof positive.
And if you investigate for 2 years, spend millions of dollars, and find zero evidence of widespread fraud.
Then they say, see, that just proves how deep the cover-up goes. The system is so rigged they were able to hide all the evidence.
You literally cannot win. There is no outcome that could disprove their belief.
You cannot win. And for the person inside that belief, that inability to be beaten feels like strength. It feels like power. They think, my logic is flawless, nothing can crack it. But they haven't built a fortress.
They've built a prison.
They've locked themselves in a room where no new information, no contrary evidence can ever possibly enter.
That is actually kind of terrifying. It's not just being wrong, it's being permanently wrong. It's intellectual isolation.
It is.
So let's make this practical. We've all been in this conversation. The source breaks down the anatomy of a dead-end conversation. Let's look at the two characters, person A and person B.
Okay. Person A is the one making the unfalsifiable claim. The election was stolen, or the banks are secretly controlling the weather, or whatever it may be. Person B is the challenger. Maybe that's you, or you, the listener.
So person B comes in with some evidence. They say, hey, I looked at the actual weather data, and that theory about the banks doesn't make any sense.
And person A doesn't say, oh, that's a good point, let me see that data. No. Person A performs a move the source calls the shift.
The shift. What is that?
This is the exact moment the conversation dies. Person A stops talking about the weather or the banks and starts talking about you. They say, you're only saying that because you watch that mainstream news channel, or you're just a sheep, or you're biased.
So the topic changes from the claim to the critic.
That's the middle layer trap. We're no longer arguing about evidence. We are now arguing about your motives, your tone, your intelligence, your moral character. The original subject, the actual truth of the matter, has vanished. It has left the building.
And psychologically, why does person A do this? Are they just being manipulative? Are they trying to be annoying?
No.
Yeah.
In their mind, they are trying to survive. This is motivated reasoning in action. Their brain is working overtime to preserve the core belief because that belief is part of their identity.
Right.
If they admit they might be wrong about the weather bank conspiracy, they might have to question their whole friend group, their news sources, their entire sense of how the world works. That is existentially terrifying. So they shift the battlefield to something they feel they can win, attacking you and your credibility.
So if I'm person B, and I think we all like to imagine we are person B in these situations, what do? Do I just flip the table and leave? Is that the only option?
The source offers a few moves, but they require a lot of patience. The first is to recenter.
How does that sound in practice?
You have to be the adult in the room. You have to say something like, okay, let's just assume for a second that I am biased. Let's say I'm a total shill. Putting that aside for a moment.
Yeah.
What would count as evidence that your claim is wrong?
Oh, I like that. You don't take the bait. You don't get defensive.
You pivot. You acknowledge their accusation, but you refuse to live there. You gently but firmly force the camera back onto the original claim. Even if I'm biased, is the claim itself testable?
And what if they just keep attacking? No, you're just not listening to me. You're part of the problem.
Then you can try to name the shift. You make the invisible dynamic visible. You say very calmly, I notice that we're talking about my motives now instead of the evidence. I'm actually really interested in the evidence. Can we go back to that?
It's a power move, but a gentle one. It calls out the dynamic without being aggressive.
It is, but, and the source is very honest about this, sometimes you have to use the exit strategy.
Just walking away.
If the goalposts keep moving, if there is absolutely zero curiosity, if every single piece of evidence you offer is just absorbed into the conspiracy, you have to recognize that this isn't an exchange of ideas. It's a ritual.
A ritual.
They are performing their belief for you, and you are just a prop in their play. They need a skeptic to fight against to reinforce their own faith.
You are just a prop. That hits hard.
In that case, the only rational move is to say, I don't think we're going to get anywhere on this, and leave with your dignity and your energy intact. You don't have to win every fight.
That is so hard for me. I hate leaving a debate unresolved. It feels like losing.
I know, but in a dead-end loop, recognizing the loop and leaving is the resolution. It's the only winning move.
Okay, I'm with you. We have dissected person A, we have analyzed their trap. But now we get to the part of this deep dive that made me sweat a little.
Yes.
This section called the mirror.
Yes. The plot twist.
Because it's really, really easy for me to sit here and say, look at all those irrational people with their unfalsifiable dragons and their rigged systems. But the source asks the brutal question, what if we are person A?
This is what it calls the rational one identity trap.
I use facts, you use emotion. I say that in my head all the time.
We all do. But here is the problem. From the inside, everyone feels like the rational one, person A. The guy with the weather conspiracy, he doesn't think he's being emotional or irrational. He thinks he is the only one who has connected the dots. He thinks you are the emotional one, the one blinded by the mainstream narrative.
So the feeling of being rational isn't proof that you are being rational.
Not at all. In fact, it can be a warning sign. So we need diagnostic tools to check ourselves. The source gives us a brilliant one called the reversibility check.
I tried this one on myself earlier, and it stung. It really did.
It's a brutal but effective tool. You take the reasoning you are using for your argument, and you ask yourself, if someone I disagreed with used this exact same reasoning to support their view, would I accept it as valid?
Can you give me a concrete example?
Sure. Let's say you are arguing that a certain politician is bad. You say, look, he stumbled over his words in that speech yesterday. He's clearly cognitively in decline.
Okay. Sounds plausible. I hear that argument all the time.
Now, imagine a politician you love stumbles over their words in a speech. Do you immediately conclude he's in cognitive decline? Or do you find yourself saying, oh, he's just tired, he's been traveling, it's just a minor stutter he's always had?
Ooh, yeah. No, I'd probably make the excuse. I absolutely would.
That is the reversibility check catching you. If stumbling over words is definitive proof of decline for your enemy, but just a bad day for your friend, then your reasoning is broken. You aren't analyzing data, you are cheering for a team.
That requires a lot of intellectual honesty to admit.
It does. And then there is the even more direct test, the falsifiability test for self. You have to sit down and ask yourself about a belief you hold strongly. What evidence, if it were presented to me, would make me reconsider this belief?
And if the answer is nothing, if you can't think of anything,
If you honestly can't think of a single piece of evidence that would change your mind, then congratulations. You are in the trap. You are person A. You have the invisible dragon in your garage.
man, that is a tough mirror to look into. That's a real challenge.
It is. And the source adds another fascinating layer of this, what it calls the teacher-student paradox.
Right. We have this built-in assumption that the teacher, the person with the authority, the PhD, the expert on TV, is always the rational person B. And the student or the lay person is the confused, emotional person A.
But the source completely flips this. It says sometimes the teacher is just protecting their status. They're using their authority to shut down legitimate questions. They are gatekeeping. And sometimes, and this is very, very relevant to the 2026 context, the student has learned how to weaponize the language of logic and psychology against the teacher.
This is the therapy speak issue that's popping up everywhere.
It is exactly that. You see people using terms they've learned online, like gaslighting, or logical fallacy, or straw man, or ad hominem. They don't always use them correctly. They use them as shields.
Right. Someone says, I think you're mistaken about that fact. And the response is, stop gaslighting me when it's just a simple disagreement.
Exactly. The source warns that just because someone knows the vocabulary of critical thinking doesn't mean they are doing critical thinking. A student can use a fancy Latin phrase for a logical fallacy to shut down a perfectly valid correction from a teacher.
So correctness and authority are totally independent variables.
You have to look at the argument structure, not the speaker's credentials or their vocabulary.
Which brings us back to the world these two, the human and the AI, are inhabiting, the world of 2026. We touched on it earlier, but I want to dive deeper now. Why is this specific date so important? What is it about that environment that makes all of this mental hygiene so incredibly difficult?
Okay, close your eyes for a second. I want you to imagine the internet of today. The algorithms, the echo chambers, the sheer noise. Now, add 2 more years of exponential AI growth.
So just more content, a flood of content.
Not just more, infinite content. And not just infinite, but hyper-personalized content. In 2026, the source describes a garbage-in phenomenon where we aren't just in echo chambers anymore. We are in what it calls reality silos.
Okay, what's the difference between an echo chamber and a reality silo?
An echo chamber means I only hear opinions I already agree with. It's a filter on opinion. Reality silo is much deeper. It means I am receiving a completely different set of facts than you are. The very building blocks of reality are different. And the source points out that as a result, words themselves are being redefined.
Like a modern Tower of Babel.
It's exactly that. Let's take the word expert. In one silo, expert means a person with institutional credentials, peer-reviewed studies, a position at a major university.
Right, the standard definition.
In another silo, just one click away, the word expert has been completely redefined to mean independent researcher, someone who is unshackled by the corrupt establishment. In that world, having a university degree might actually make you less trustworthy because you are part of the system.
Wow. So when these two people from different silos try to talk, and one says you should trust the experts, they are literally referring to opposite groups of people.
Exactly. They think they're using the same word, but they are not. They are talking past each other. Or look at the world of finance. You see the phrase, the system is broken. To one group, that means we need better regulations and maybe some tax reform.
A call for incremental change.
To another group, it means the currency is fundamentally fake. You need to buy crypto and ammo because the entire global financial collapse is happening next Tuesday.
Same sentence, completely different worlds.
And this leads to a really critical distinction the source makes between misinformation and overconfidence.
This was a big aha moment for me when I was reading the transcript.
It's so important. We talk a lot about misinformation, people believing wrong facts. But the source argues that the bigger, more dangerous problem is overconfidence. The absolute certainty we feel about those facts, whether they're right or wrong.
Misinformation is the fuel. Overconfidence is the engine.
That's the line. That's it. You can be wrong about something, but if you have some humility, if you're not totally sure, you can be corrected. The system of truth-seeking can still work. But if you are wrong, you are certain. If you have sky-high overconfidence, you are unreachable. You're a locked door.
And the modern internet, especially the 2026 version, runs on that engine of overconfidence.
It does. I mean, think about it. If you post a video saying, guys, this situation is really complicated and there are some good points on both sides, and frankly, I'm not sure what the right answer is, what happens to that video?
Crickets, it gets no views, no engagement.
Zero engagement. But if you post a video screaming, they are lying to you, here is the hidden truth they don't want you to know, you go viral.
Certainty sells. It's compelling.
Certainty is a drug. In a world of fragmentation and anxiety, people are desperate for something solid to hold on to. They don't want nuance, they want a rock. So they flock to the people who offer absolute, unwavering confidence, even if that confidence is built on complete nonsense.
So we are swimming in a sea of confident nonsense. The question is, how do we not drown? The source gives us a practical toolkit for truth. And I want to get really specific here. No platitudes. How do we actually filter the garbage?
Okay, the first tool is my absolute favorite. It's called check for friction.
Friction. Tell me more.
We are conditioned by modern media to want information to be smooth. We want it to slide right into our brains without any effort.
Yeah.
We want that, yes, I knew it feeling.
The dopamine hit of confirmation.
Exactly. The source says, be very, very careful of the smooth. If you read an article or watch a video and it feels effortless, if it confirms everything you already believe, if it makes you feel smart and superior immediately, that is a massive red flag.
So if it tastes like candy, it's probably candy.
Precisely. Real truth, real knowledge usually has friction. It resists you. It introduces caveats. It says, well, X is true, but Y makes it much more complicated. It should slow you down. It should make you feel a little bit stupid, or at least a little bit unsure.
So if I'm reading something and I feel zero internal friction, I should be immediately suspicious.
You should assume you are being pandered to, that you're the product, not the consumer.
Okay. Tool number 2 from the source, the strongest version heuristic.
This is about how a source of information treats its opposition. Does this source argue against the strongest, most intelligent version of the other side? Or do they pick a weak, silly caricature to dunk on?
The classic straw man versus the steel man argument.
Yes, exactly. If you are listening to a political podcaster and they only ever play clips of the dumbest, craziest person from the other political party, you should just turn it off. They're feeding you junk food. They're making you feel smart by comparing you to an idiot.
Right.
A source that is genuinely interested in truth will engage with the best and most compelling arguments that the other side has to offer.
That's a really good filter. If there's just dunking on a clown, they aren't a serious source.
They're not serious. And the third check on your information intake is emotional pacing. Is the content designed to inform you with a steady, maybe even slightly boring, neutral tone? Or is it designed to persuade you with urgency, with outrage, with fast cuts and dramatic music?
You need to be angry about this, NSW.
Share this before they take it down. That is the language of manipulation, not education.
Okay, so that's auditing our garbage in. How do we audit our own reasoning, our garbage out?
Well, we already mentioned the reversibility check, which is a great start, but there is another, even more brutal one, the Steelman test.
This sounds like hard work.
It is the hardest intellectual work there is. The test is this. Can you state the opposing argument so well, so clearly, and so fairly that the person who holds that view would listen to your summary and say, yes, that is exactly what I mean?
Man, I try to do this sometimes in my head, but usually I just end up making them sound stupid so I can win the imaginary argument more easily.
We all do that. So what you're really saying is you hate freedom and want to destroy the economy.
Exactly, that's my go-to.
But the principle here is that until you can steelman their view, you don't actually understand it. And if you don't truly understand it, you don't really have the right to disagree with it yet.
That is a very high bar. That's a challenge.
It is. But it's the price of entry if you're serious about finding the truth.
The source also warns against something it calls protagonist thinking. I love this term. What is it?
We are all the main characters in our own movies. It's just a fact of consciousness. We see our own struggles. We know why we believe what we believe. We remember reading the books. We remember having the late-night thoughts. We feel the full texture of our own minds.
But we don't see that for other people. We can't.
No, we only see their output. We see their tweet. We see their bumper sticker. We see their vote. And because we don't see their internal struggle, their reasoning, we just assume they are simple. We assume they are NPCs, non-player characters in our own grand story.
I am complex and nuanced. You are a simple stereotype.
The correction for this, the source says, is to adopt a simple rule. Assume that 80% of other people's thinking is invisible to you. Assume they have a backstory, a logic, and a set of experiences that led them to their conclusion, even if you think that conclusion is profoundly wrong.
That breeds a certain kind of empathy and humility.
It stops you from using that lazy, dismissive, just biased label.
I want to talk about the case study in the source, because we have this user, the human, talking to the AI, and they seem pretty advanced in their thinking. They are actively using some really interesting techniques.
Yeah, the AI in the source gives them an A for their method.
Which is a solid grade. One of the techniques they use is something called subpersonalities. Now, this sounded a little woo-woo to me at first, but the more I read, the more practical it seemed.
It's essentially structured metacognition. It's like the movie Inside Out, but for adults.
Okay, walk me through it. How do you actually do this in practice?
All right, imagine you read something online that triggers you. You feel that hot surge of anger in your chest. Instead of just being angry, the user in the source pauses and holds a kind of board meeting in their head. They ask, who is sitting at the head of the table right now?
And it's probably like the outraged protector part of you.
Right. The guy with the torch and the pitchfork. He's screaming, attack! They're wrong. But because you can identify him, you can name him, oh, that's just the protector doing his job.
Yeah.
You don't have to become him.
You can observe him.
You can observe him, and you can say, thank you, protector, I hear your concern. Now, please sit down. I'd like to hear from the curious analyst part of myself for a minute.
So you are actively choosing which part of your brain is driving the bus in that moment.
Exactly. It turns a knee-jerk reflex into a conscious choice. It creates a critical gap between the stimulus and your response.
That is incredibly powerful. But you said the user got an A? Why not an A plus then? What were the critiques?
Well, even with these great tools, there are still risks. The source points out a sampling bias. The user says something like, oh, I make sure to talk to friends who disagree with me.
Which sounds good on the surface.
It is good. It's better than nothing. But
Yeah.
is your friend from college the most articulate and well-read debater for that entire worldview? Probably not.
Right.
Arguing with your uncle at Thanksgiving isn't the same as engaging with the best books, the sharpest thinkers, the strongest arguments the other side has to offer. You might be winning against weak arguments and feeling like a champion debater.
You're just beating up local sparring partners, not the heavyweight champ.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the AI in the source also points out its own limitation. The AI is programmed to be cooperative. It wants to be helpful. It's not a true adversary. It mirrors balance. It presents counter-arguments politely, but it won't try to humiliate you. It won't use dirty rhetorical tricks. Real-world opponents will.
So don't mistake a polite chat with a helpful robot for a real street fight with a true believer.
Precisely. The training environment is not the real world.
So where does this leave us? We've audited our brains. We've seen the deep trap of unfalsifiability. We've looked at the coming chaos of 2026. How do we wrap all this up? What is the actual goal here? The source has a final section on calibration over perfection.
This is the ultimate reframe, and it's so important. We started this whole deep dive talking about the desire for a flawless argument. We want to build a bridge of logic that can never, ever collapse.
But the source says that's not just hard, it's impossible.
It is. Certainty is a mirage. The goal isn't to be flawless. The goal is to know where the cracks are in your own arguments.
I love that. It's not about having no cracks, it's about knowing where they are.
A flawed argument isn't necessarily a false conclusion. It just means it has weak points. Intellectual humility doesn't mean saying, I know nothing. That's a cop-out. It means saying, I believe this is true, but I know I could be wrong about this specific part, and I'm open to seeing evidence on that point.
It's about knowing the limits of your own knowledge.
It's about calibration. Being 100% certain about something that is only 80% likely to be true is a form of error. Being 80% certain about it is a form of accuracy.
There is a quote here at the end of the transcript that I want to end on. Certainty seeks flawless arguments. Wisdom seeks better approximations.
That's the whole takeaway. We aren't trying to be perfect. We're just trying to be a little less wrong today than we were yesterday.
I can do less wrong. That feels achievable. Perfection feels impossible.
We all can. It's a process.
So here is our challenge to you listening right now. We want you to take a minute after this and identify one belief you hold. Just one that feels unfalsifiable. One thing where you feel deep down, no matter what happens, no matter what anyone says, I know I'm right about this.
And then ask yourself the really hard question. What evidence, if it existed, even hypothetically, would make me change my mind?
And if the honest answer that comes back to you is nothing,
Then you've found your dragon.
and it might be time to open the garage door. Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you next time.